For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomenon in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Yeah, we got 30-odd minutes. We're working on a mystery.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got 30-odd minutes.
Tell it, son.
We're working on a mystery. That's right.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, these oddballs look strange on the 30-odd minutes here tonight. Yeah, but we got Loyd Auerbach, and he's a master of parapsychology. That's
Right
right.
on. You know it, Lord.
Yeah, we got 30-odd minutes.
Yeah, we do.
We're working on our mystery. With host Jeff Belanger and guest Loyd Auerbach, specialist of parapsychology.
Oh, yeah. All right. Carlston chops wood. My man. Thank you very much. Sounds beautiful. Sounds beautiful. Welcome to a very special episode of 30-odd minutes. As you can tell by the way we're dressed, we're into the blues. You can tell. You can just tell. We want to invite everybody, if you're watching, go to our website, 30oddminutes.com. Click on the chat room, and our folks in the chat room are going to help you. They're right about over, almost over. They're almost over here. Ooh, there they are, ready to rock you out in the chat room. Ask your questions. They'll pass them up to us. It's going to be a great time, a great show. But we are into the blues. You know that. Tonight we are going to be talking parapsychology, and at the end, you don't want to miss this musical mess that we're going to make right here on this stage with all the oddballs. The oddballs feeling good tonight?
Oh, yeah!
All right, we are feeling good. All right, well, we know you've got questions, so do we, and that's why each week we get ready by asking a one-question interview.
One question interview.
We're here with Amy Bruni and Chris Williams from the TAPS team, the hit sci-fi show Ghost Hunters. This is your one question interview. We're going to ask you the question every 14-year-old boy in the nation wants to know. How you doing?
Just great. Lovely.
Hey, now we know. They're doing just great. Well, hey, there's lots of other ways to ask us questions. If you want, you can send us an email at info@30oddminutes.com, and we get your emails each week. Here's one this week. This just in. Oh, ready? Just got it. Dear Info, request for urgent business relationship. First, this is utterly confidential and top secret. I am a top official with the federal government of Nigeria, interested in partnering with you to move $25 million out of our country. For your help, we will pay you a handling fee of 20%. Yours faithfully, Dr. Clement Ocon. Dr. Clement. This sounds legit.
Oh, that sounds safe.
This sounds safe. We're gonna go big. Stop sending us spam. Send us good mail, please. All right. Great show again, and tonight, I think what better way to introduce our guest than musically? Carlston chops wood again.
Yes, your ghost keeps haunting me, baby, ever since you left this town. That's right. Oh, your ghost keeps haunting me, baby, ever since you left this town. Yeah. Well, I keep seeing your apparition. I'm gonna have to move around.
Tell it, son.
Every time I see you hanging around my back door.
Make it tough.
Yes, every time I see you, darling, hanging around my back door.
Yeah, baby.
That's right.
That's right.
I keep seeing you, baby, even though you're not on this
so sweet, doesn't it? Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, Carlston. Sounding good, sounding good. Loyd Auerbach is our guest tonight. We're excited to have him. Loyd is the author of many, many books on the paranormal, including the classic ESP, Hauntings and Poltergeist. There they are. Paranormal Casebook, Mind Over Matter, just to name a few. He has a master's degree in parapsychology from JFK University. You've seen him on many television programs, including Larry King, Joan Rivers, Hard Copy, David Letterman, and now making his debut on the show that tops all those easily, 30-odd minutes, live from our studios in Loyd's house in Northern California. Please give it up for parapsychologist Loyd Auerbach.
Thank you.
Right, right. Loyd, how are you tonight? Loyd, you doing good? Man, it's going to be that kind of night, isn't it? Can you hear me, Loyd?
Jeff, I can't hear you at all.
Oh, man. How are you, Loyd?
I'm doing all right, but I can't hear Jeff. Jeff, trying to lip read you there.
All right, well, we'll make this happen. Loyd, can we start with what is parapsychology? What is parapsychology?
Parapsychology is the study of how the mind interacts with the world around us, with each other, without the use of the normal senses, without the use of our physical body. So we're talking about ESP, pulling information in without the use of the senses, talking about psychokinesis or mind over matter. Mind-matter interaction is what we call it today. And of course, the idea that the mind, consciousness, can survive the death of the body, what we call survival of bodily death, ghosts and such.
And so there's an academia for this.
There's an academia for this?
Well, there's an academic study of parapsychology. I guess you could say there's a science behind a lot of it. The fact is that parapsychology got started as psychical research in the late 1800s by a lot of scientists, a lot of physical scientists. Some very famous scientists in the 19th century were involved in it. And it is mainly, in fact, from the scientific perspective, a laboratory science, though we do involve looking at the experiences in the field outside. I mean, you bring it into the laboratory, you bring ESP into the laboratory, how it's really being experienced, and you try to set up experiments to control for it, to understand what's actually going on. So the field has been a field of science for quite a long time, and it's been, in fact, a member field of the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences for well over 30 years at this point.
Well, very good. And so you went to JFK University. Are there still studies available for this, for parapsychology?
Well, John F. Kennedy University actually had a master's program from 1978 to 1989, approximately. There is no academic study of parapsychology per se. There are courses here and there around the United States. But as of last month, it was announced that the University of Coventry University in England, has an online master's program, Master of Science program, that folks can take from anywhere in the world. It is something that should be up on the Parapsychological Association's website. I'm going to have something up pretty soon on my website about it. And in fact, the Parapsychological Association's website, which is parapsych.org, actually has a list of educational opportunities around the world. We are working, in fact, on an education website, which hopefully will be up in a couple months. I'm not quite sure how long it'll take, to really provide folks with an idea of where they can take both academic and non-academic studies. And the courses I teach, for example, are non-academic.
Right, right. But is this related to ghosts, or are we talking about powers of the mind?
It's all the same.
Okay.
I mean, if a ghost moves an object, that's psychokinesis. That's mind over matter. It doesn't matter if it's a live guy or a dead guy moving the object. It's still mind over matter. When a ghost sees something, the ghost doesn't have eyes. The ghost has no physical senses, so the ghost would have to move things with their mind. They have to see with their mind. That's a form of ESP. You might call that, dead ESP in that case. But we're really talking about the same thing. So we are talking about consciousness, living and dead, and ghosts being consciousness, pure conscious in that sense. You have to really look at how it connects to living. And the fact is that we, living people, are the ones who experience ghosts. So how is that possible without there being some sort of direct connection with their consciousness?
Right. Now, are you having an earthquake there by any chance?
Am I having an earthquake?
A little shaking.
No.
Oh, all right.
No, maybe it's the Skype connection.
Man, that would have been cool, a live earthquake.
Here, wait.
Oh, there it is. Oh, man, that's awesome.
That was a Loyd quake.
Right. So, I mean, are parapsychologists interested in ghosts?
Parapsychologists are interested in survival, the concept of survival of bodily death, and along with that comes with apparitions and hauntings and such. But I think that while there's a general interest in survival, folks specialize in certain things, have certain specific interests. I don't think they're disinterested, but they're not interested, for example, necessarily in doing field investigation. It's the same thing you'll find in other sciences, other social sciences, for example. You have psychologists who work in the field, who do clinical work. And you have psychologists who only do experimental work, and there is kind of like an overlap, but they don't always do the same thing.
Right, understood. But you get out there, you're an investigator, you've done paranormal investigations. How do you bridge that gap?
Well, I'm doing field investigations. I'm actually applying principles in parapsychology to doing those field investigations. You know, there's a big disconnect in the ghost hunting community between parapsychology, the science, and what they're calling science. And the reality is that most folks are not doing science when they're doing field investigations. They may be doing actual investigative work, and sometimes I see that that's not even the case. But they're not doing science just because they're using technology to get readings. That doesn't make it science. You have to analyze the readings. You have to apply the scientific method to those specific readings and actually try to come up with models of what you're trying to figure out. So why the EMFs are there, why folks are getting other types of readings and other types of equipment, you have to kind of look at all that. And the idea here is that just simply using technology does not make it scientific. And that's kind of unfortunately, this is a problem not just in parapsychology, not just in field work with ghost hunting. It's a problem in science education in the United States in general. There's a big problem that's been pointed out in a lot of places on how science is disconnected from the American public. So it's no wonder that people think they're doing science by doing technology, using technology.
Now, I have a stethoscope. Does that make me a doctor?
Right, that's a good question. You know, I have a wrench. Does that make me a plumber? In fact, I've watched Jay and Grant do plumbing. Does that make me a plumber?
It might. I've learned a thing or two from them. I mean, you know.
You know, I think they probably had to go through some sort of apprenticeship and probably are, you know, certified license, whatever plumbers have to be in whatever state. So, you know, you have that with other things. It's crazy to think you can just watch a couple TV shows, even if it's one I've been involved in, and go out there and do something. It's like watching Cops or watching Law and Order and suddenly you're a police detective. It doesn't work that way.
Right, and that's one of the things. Right now, the subject's so popular that, of course, there's all these television shows, there's all these websites, these books, there's people like us speaking in front of audiences all over the place about this topic. So the good news is people are paying attention, and it's an opportunity to teach and to talk about it, and more people are coming forward. It's not as weird as it was a few years ago, but of course, there's the downside. Like you said, people see a couple of television shows and think they're ready to hang up a shingle and go do this, and which is, I mean, but there's a difference between running through some historic park and going into someone's home. Am I right?
Right, yeah, and I think that, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being the kind of hobbyist who wants to go out and do these kinds of investigations, just basically check into things. There's no real harm for people to go to haunted places or ostensibly haunted places in terms of public places, as long as they don't interfere with the business, as long as they don't create problems for that particular business or site. When it comes to working with people, there's a big problem because people are calling you into their homes because they're afraid, because they need help. And I've gotten so many calls from people who have already had the local ghost hunter crew in, this is from all over the country, telling me that they came in, they got their evidence, they played a little of the evidence for them, they told us the place was haunted, and then they left. That's not why they were called to begin with. They're not equipped to help people, and they're not equipped to really understand what's going on. And I've been on cases where when I've gone in after the ghost hunters had said that there's something paranormal happening, we found out that there was nothing paranormal happening.
Right, and that's the nature of this beast, certainly. Loyd, we have a question in the chat room. Sarah, what's going on?
They want to know if Loyd has had a case that he's been involved with where he found that his parapsychology experience actually really seemed invaluable.
So, Loyd, I don't know if you heard that, but
I didn't.
Have you found a case where your parapsychological background really was an invaluable asset on a particular ghost investigation?
I think that in a lot of my cases it's been valuable. Certainly any poltergeist case where we're dealing with moving objects, with significant moving objects, since the model of the poltergeist has been for the last 80 years in parapsychology, that we're dealing with a living person. So in those cases we can absolutely apply what we've learned and help the people almost immediately. That's kind of a real easy one once you figure out who done it, more or less. In my first really good apparition case, and I had a few that were decent, but my first really good one, my parapsychological background allowed me to ask questions of the ghost through the family members who were apparently seeing and hearing the ghost. And I got some really interesting answers that fit in with the models that we already had, although it was kind of hard to find those models if you were the average person.
Right, no, understood. Loyd, we're going to take a quick break because we actually have a live field report, the first time that we're ever trying this. Fingers are crossed. We're going to go to our fellow oddball and live correspondent, Andrew Lake, who's out in the field there in Rhode Island. Andrew, can you hear me?
place over the last year. Just hit you with some of the strangest events right here in the living room. This red chair here, no matter where it has been in the living room, it has been a place where calling cards have been left. And this is what I mean by calling cards. First one was found just underneath the chair about 3 months ago. It was followed up by this utensil, which used to be a spoon, and as you can see has been completely flattened out. A pair of inexpensive reading glasses disappeared, and when they turned up, this is what they looked like. The chair was moved to the other side of the room, with similar calling cards still showing up. This one was rather strange because it wasn't found under the chair or on it. It was propped up between the chair and the wall. This object was put away in a shed outside of the house, buried under many, many things. We don't even know how it got out of the shed. And this one I personally saw coming over on an investigation, tucked between the armrest and the mattress. Most disturbing was witnessed by the homeowner and her next door neighbor. For 10 minutes they watched this soot appear on this cherub's face. And it has a rather personal significance to the family that I won't touch on now, but very, very strange. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, oh my God, you got back here fast. Oh, that was our first live report, and pretty amazing. Great stuff, Andrew. Sorry we had a little audio hookup there in the beginning. He was at a private home in Scituate, Rhode Island, right? And an investigation. Amazing stuff. You know, you're finding these artifacts all over the place. Loyd, I mean, have you seen something like this where you actually find, you know, bent spoons appearing in different parts of the house?
Well, you know, I didn't hear a word of what he said. I could obviously see everything.
Right.
Well, we've dealt with bent spoons and bent metal all the time. I mean, back in the early 80s, there was an aerospace engineer named Jack Houck who was putting on spoon bending parties at a lot of different places, still does them from time to time, and that's kind of an outgrowth of Uri Geller appearing on TV in the 70s and people in their homes being able to bend things, just watching him on television kind of triggered things. Regardless of what you say about Uri, he was always a good trigger for other people's abilities. And I have seen both genuine metal bending, quite unconsciously in some instances, and I've also seen fraud quite a bit. As a psychic entertainer, I have some good buddies who can fake it real well.
Right.
But those kinds of bendings, they're common around people around poltergeist cases.
Right. You are a mentalist. That's another facet of what you do, Professor Paranormal. And
right.
You've tricked me many a times. Thank you. And, you know, it's embarrassing, of course.
It's not about tricking you. It's about entertaining you, hopefully, Jeff.
Right. No, it is entertaining because I always go home going, how did he do that? And there's something about that. You know, I mean, why are we fooled? Are we fooled easily? Is it just sleight of hand? What is mentalism?
Well, you know, we're fooled by, let's face it, you watch somebody like Hal Holbrook, who used to do a Mark Twain show, and you're convinced that he's that character. You watch actors, and it's the nature of entertainment to present, if you present it properly, to present a character that comes with credibility. So when we're talking about magic, you know, I don't think too many people watch a magician and believe that that might be real, sawing a woman in half, making somebody disappear. But the thing about mentalism is, about psychic entertainment, is that we are simulating actual abilities and experiences that people have reported and continue to report. So it's kind of like really good special effects. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're watching a movie whether they've used explosives on a car or if they've done CGI. And in reality, it doesn't matter. It's special effects either way. So you can think of it as we are fooled by things that mimic things that are real.
Right. Well, actually, we have another question for you here from Carlston, Chops Wood.
Yes,
sir.
I'd like to ask Loyd if ghosts get the blues.
The ghosts get the blues.
The ghosts get the blues. I think that some ghosts get the blues. I'll tell you that we use music sometimes to drive off ghosts. We have never tried using the blues because I think most ghosts would just enjoy it.
Yeah, see that? Oh, absolutely. Good question. All right, let's get into some of your favorite haunts. I know the USS Hornet, for example, you know, is a site you've investigated, you know, many times. But actually, I'm sorry, Andy in the back, before we jump to that, I want to mention demons real quick. I know you're a big fan of the subject of demons. Am I right? Ha! He scoffs. But you have an actual demon photo, Mr. Auerbach.
Yeah, you know, you should show that picture. Do you have a picture of my cat? One of my cats?
We have a demon photo to bring up here in just a moment. There it is. Lloyd's demon cat.
That's my demon cat. That's bonkers.
How can you say there's no such thing
and you know,
as
it kind of illustrates real interesting things about film, because when looking at that single picture, and look at the negative has got that red blast on it as well.
Right.
But if you were to look at the negative on either side in the photo, on either side on the roll, you'd actually see that there's a bleed over because that film was old. It had been in the camera for over a year, and it was film itself. So the chemical process had started to change. It just, I guess I just lucked out that the two eye shapes were close to his head. And I can tell you he's the least demonic of any of my cats.
And let's face it, cats are a little bit evil. I mean, I've known a few.
Yeah, you know, some people think that.
all right. So, all right, the USS Hornet, this great warship in Alameda, California, you've investigated it on a number of occasions. Can we take a look at that? How did you first get drawn to this ship?
Well, that's not the ship. That's
nope,
the
sorry.
actual the patio area of
the
Moss
Hornet.
Beach Distillery. But
yeah. Sorry, we'll get to the ship.
Okay.
No. But how did you first get drawn to the USS Hornet?
Well, the Hornet actually opened as a museum in 1998. It had been brought down here from the Bremerton shipyards in '95 for a ceremony in closing the Alameda Air Naval Base, and it was rescued more or less from the scrap heap by a foundation, turned into a museum. And a psychic by the name of Stash Murray was contacted by one of the people she'd done a reading for, who was working on the ship for the foundation, and said that they were having experiences aboard the ship. And after she did an investigation herself, she found me, kind of interviewed me on the phone to make sure I had good intentions, and then brought me aboard the ship and my folks aboard the ship. That was back in '98, '99. And so we did a lot of work in '99 and 2000, interviewing lots and lots of witnesses. That's Annette Martin, who's one of the psychics I actually work with. And this is actually at the Moss Beach Distillery, one of my other, probably the longest term investigation I've got. I've been doing an investigation there since '91. But the case itself has witnesses going back to the early 1930s.
Right. Well,
and Annette's a really good psychic.
Yeah. Before we jump ahead though to the ship that was behind me, we were in the engine room there for a second. On the ship, why is it haunted? What are some of the?
Well, you know, the ship's it's a real interesting thing because I did Coast to Coast a few years ago when I was doing the investigation of the ship, and someone called from the Bremerton shipyards. It was a guy who was a maintenance guy. He and his dad worked on the ships, actually maintained the ships, and he said that he'd maintained the Hornet for quite some time, and he started talking about how it never had a haunting at all, no ghosts, nothing. And we thought that he was just a skeptic, but it turned out, as he continued, he talked about two of the other ships that were haunted, very haunted, still up there. Now, we find that what appears to have happened is that these are guys who died in civilian life after the ship was basically pulled out of commission in the early 70s. The only three people that were identified from the images that people reported, in other words, from descriptions, were people who definitely died after the ship was decommissioned. They did not die aboard that ship. And it seems like the folks who are back, the sailors and officers, are there because of all the attention needed to rescue this ship. It's a very important ship historically. It was going to be scrapped, and all of the attention from both the living and the dead seems to have really helped the ship survive that. It is the ship, it was a kind of the lead ship in the Pacific Fleet in the latter part of World War II, and it's the ship that picked up Apollo 11 and 12 in 1969.
Right. And so now when people go into a location like this, like that was almost behind me for a second, when people go into a location, do you think, I mean, is there some kind of mental state that we get into when we go into, you're stepping into the context, you know, you're not looking at photos, you're actually in the actual ship, you're walking through history, so to speak. Does that play a role in how our mind may perceive these things?
Well, I think it helps. It certainly helps a little bit, but you have to remember that there are hundreds, it's a museum, so there are hundreds and hundreds of people who wander through there, many of whom are not actually interested in ghosts, and many of whom have never heard about the ghosts because they're coming from other parts of the world. They're there because the ship is historically an important thing. And they don't necessarily have experiences, and some of them actually then turn around and actually do have experiences. So you have kind of a combination of things. But I think that sense of history, and you might say the ship itself has a good feel to it, a spirit of sorts, and I think that doesn't hurt at all.
Fair enough. Sorry, we just had a little kooky thing happen here. But we're going to get through this, because that's how we roll here at 30-odd minutes. Things go wrong, and it's live, one take, straight through. Let's talk quickly about the Moss Beach Distillery, which is, we showed a photo there before with you and Annette Martin. That's a site you've looked into on many occasions, but it's also one of these sites that has rigged devices to try to reproduce the hauntings, which... More
recently, right.
Right.
Yeah, what happened was, I mean, this place had been, like I said, there have been investigations going for quite a long time. I'm not the first person to investigate, but I've done probably the most work there since '91, and talking to the local historian, to folks who lived in the area, and looking at records, there are sightings of the ghost going back to the 1930s after she died. So this is a long-term thing. And the restaurant was bought in the 1990s, early 1990s, by John Barber, who is the current owner. There it is back in the 30s, actually. And John didn't even believe in ghosts, but he came to experience things himself. So he did a lot of work there. And then in '97, because of the building slipping down the hill a little bit, it had to be anchored into the hill for earthquake safety. So they literally took it apart piece by piece and put it back together again. They made a couple of minor changes to things inside the restaurant, such as moving the ladies' room and a couple of things for disability purposes. And as part of that, John asked me, he knew he was getting a lot of mileage out of the ghost sightings. This is '97. So in '98, he asked if there was anything we could do other than holding like weekly seances or something that would attract people to the restaurant. And we came up with the idea of doing recreations of some of the things that people had seen. So, for example, the lamps above the bar, out of the 7 lamps, 4 of them, we actually, and I was involved in all of this, by the way, and we had a press conference in '98 to reveal these special effects. So it's not been a secret at all since the beginning. But there are 4 out of the 7 lamps are actually rigged. And what's really interesting is that I was there with the TV crew in '99 after the place was set up, after these things were working. And first of all, we turn off the effects, or the effects are turned off at night. But having the 2 end lamps, which are not rigged, actually move around when they're clearly not rigged in any way, shape, or form, gives us kind of an interesting out. If that happens during the day and people don't want to believe in ghosts, they can believe that there's special effects.
Right.
If it happens during the day and people want to believe in the ghosts, they can ask and they'll find out that those are not the rigged lamps.
And it's like supernatural tourism. People want to have these experiences.
Well, you know where I got the idea, Jeff?
Where? Do tell.
The Queen Mary.
Right. Yeah. That's...
Queen Mary on its ghost tour was doing special effects. I mean, it's amazing to me. People got really upset about the distillery when the Queen Mary had been doing it for like 8 years longer than that, and still does it on their tours.
That's what I was.
And they charge for ghost tours, which the distillery doesn't do. They don't charge anything for this.
Right. Understand. But there's something about that, right? I mean, people want to have this experience. You want to have it away from home, ideally, right? So you can go somewhere and have this surreal experience that you can then take you take that back, and it's
and as playful as this ghost happens to be, she's not always there, and she's not like a barking dog. She's not going to work for for a living.
Right. No, understood. Well, Loyd, we're almost right up to the end here, but talk to us. What else are you working on right now?
Well, I've got my distance learning courses, which of course you have on ghostvillage.com. I'm also doing now some lower-cost teleseminars. I'll be having those up on my website, which is mindreader.com, in a few days for the upcoming schedule. So these are short, one-off teleseminars, one of which will be about the recent Parapsychological Association convention, kind of state-of-the-art what's happening in parapsychology. Working on the education website, and I'm just looking around for other projects at this point, but the main thing I'm working on, focusing some of my energy on, is chocolate, as you know, Jeff.
Right.
So that's a whole different thing for me right now.
If you ever get to go to a conference and Loyd is there, the good news is get close to him. Be his buddy, because he always has really great chocolate on it.
And I'm making some now, too. I'm making my own.
I can't wait to try it. That'll be awesome. Well, Loyd, thank you so much. Because this is our first musical show, we are going to end on a jam. And if you want to witness this carnage, by all means, hang with us. If you want to break out your didgeridoo and play along...
I've tried, and I can get a couple of sounds out of it, and that's about it. So I don't think it'll add anything.
Well, it won't take anything away. Oddballs, come on up. Let's jam this thing out. Let's take it home. Carlston chops wood, key of C. Take it.